everyone. Welcome back to True Crime Buzz. I'm your host, Brittany, and with me, as always, is Amber.
Hello.
And what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking another Natty Light seltzer because the other one was so good. And I have different flavors, so I wanted to try them all.
I'll try one for you, but all the seltzers I've tried so far, I hate, so...
Well, I'm bringing you one when I come see you soon.
Okay, perfect.
And the one I'm trying today is Aloha Beaches. And it's mango and peach flavor.
I'm down. Mango. Let's go.
Yep.
That's my favorite fruit.
Here, let me try it.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. That's good.
All right, bring me that exact one. Well, not the one you're drinking out of, but one like it.
It'll be flat by the time I come see you, but I will.
I, of course, am drinking Diet Sam's Cola, but I'm being extra white trash today, and I'm drinking it out of one of the big, 2 liters? Whatever it is, liters. Because...
Are you drinking a 2-liter?
Yeah, just like chugging it back.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's as redneck as they get right there.
But Walmart substituted me that, and that's awful. That's awful. I don't know what that's about.
So you ordered cans and they substituted you a 2-liter? That is not even close.
Two 2 liters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
You let us down, Walmart.
You did. It's disappointing. Well, do you have a personal true crime story of the week?
Well, it's not Bernard. For those who have been keeping up with my asshole of a cat, I moved the litter box out of my office.
Yay!
We literally had nowhere else to put it, so it's in our guest bathroom because we rarely have people over. So I just thought, you know what, let's put it in there. But now I use that bathroom when I'm working, and so there's cat litter everywhere, and I just can't win. So my actual personal true crime this week, speaking of nightmares... So, we had this whole conversation, me and you, about how I can't handle animal cruelty because I don't like animals suffering.
Right.
Like, a dead animal is a dead animal, but if they're suffering, I can't handle it. I took Stella out to potty the other night, and it was like nighttime. It was like probably 11 o'clock at night. And I heard rustling in the woods, and she did too. She was freaking out, but I'm like, you got to potty, we're going to bed. Like, I got your back, you're fine. I had a flashlight. But I hear stomping around in the woods. And I thought it's either a bear or a coyote or something. And then I heard the sound of the circle of life, which is whatever it was, killing and eating, I guess, a rabbit.
Oh, no.
But like that sound, oh no, it gave me nightmares. I hated it.
Oh, that's awful.
I came inside and I was like, Sam, I'm going to have nightmares tonight. And he was like, why? And I was like, there's something in the woods, which there should be because we live out in BFE. But it just killed a rabbit because I know that sound.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst sound.
So that was a true crime. A literal true crime.
Yeah.
And it's unsolved because I don't know if it was a bear or a coyote.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going to check.
No. Well, I know you got some good news this week, but do you have any personal true crimes?
I do. Oh my God, my whole day yesterday could have been a personal true crime, but I'm only going to share part of it because we could do a whole podcast about it. But we went to the beach last weekend, and when we left, my husband unplugged... Well, he intended to unplug the air conditioning unit and plug up our security camera for outside. And instead, he unplugged the deep freezer. And we didn't realize that till yesterday. And we lost every single thing in the deep freezer. And I mean, there was
which was a lot.
Ham. Oh, it was so much.
You had like a whole deer in there, didn't you?
Yeah. I don't eat deer meat, but Matt does.
Well, not a whole deer, but
no, it was. It was processed. It had been to the Packers or wherever you send deer meat. I don't know.
We're not talking Jeffrey Dahmer's freezer.
No. And that was the worst part of it, too, because it had thawed out and there was just like blood everywhere. It looked like a crime scene. It was a crime.
Did it smell like a crime scene?
No.
Did it smell like... No? Okay, well, it's not too bad.
Luckily.
But still, it was a mess.
There was so much in there that I think it slowly, defrosted and it kept it from smelling. Mm-hmm. But, ooh, it was rough.
Yeah, that's rough either way.
So, let's get to, because I've been waiting for part 2.
I actually have been waiting too, because obviously I'm the one telling it. I know all the stuff, but I had so much fun telling part 1 that I was like, I'm ready for part 2 already.
Yes.
But yes, we are back to part 2 of Jeffrey Dahmer. You probably already know this, but if you have not listened to part 1, do not proceed and go back and listen to part 1, because today is part 2 and I don't want you to miss any of the juicy details.
Yes.
Literally. So when we last left off, Jeffrey had just been released from his 1-year prison sentence, which we joked it wasn't really a true prison sentence because he worked during the day. He was on that work release program.
Right.
So he had just been released from that and is now moved into his new infamous apartment 213 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And at this point, his kill count is at 5, which normally is a lot, but we still have lots to go. Because remember, he killed 17 people.
Whew.
So on May 20th, 1990, Jeffrey selected victim number 6. His name was Raymond Smith, and he was a 32-year-old male prostitute. He met him at his favorite gay bar, Club 219, and offered him $50 for sex, which he agreed, and they went back to Jeffrey's new apartment. He then drugged his drink with the sleeping pills. They had sex, and then he proceeded to strangle him to death.
Oh, he did not consent to that.
And after he murdered him, he went out and bought a Polaroid camera and took pictures of Raymond Smith's corpse in different poses afterwards. As far as trophies, he kept his skull, and this time he painted it red. About a week after murdering Raymond, he tried again, and this is comical. I know this is a dark story, but this is just funny.
Right.
About a week after murdering Raymond, he tried again, but he accidentally got the drinks mixed up, and he drank the one that had the sleeping pills in it. Yeah. That was my reaction too.
That reminds me of those TikToks where they're like, if I was a spy or a hitman or whatever, and they're all like, they stir it with their finger and then they accidentally taste it and pass out. That's what that reminds me of.
You would think he would know what the hell he was doing because he's on victim number 6, but no, he did a little oopsie daisy.
Oopsie daisy.
So not only did the guy get away with his life, which is the ultimate prize, but he also stole Jeffrey's watch and $300 cash out of his wallet.
Oof. Good for him. Good for him. I don't condone robbery, but like, good for you, friend.
So for his next victim, Jeffrey was a little more careful. He decided to actually murder an acquaintance of his rather than a total stranger right away. He met 28-year-old Edward Smith at the Phoenix bar, and they hung out for a while. He didn't kill him right away. They ended up going to a party on June 14th, 1990, and that is the last place that anyone had seen him alive. After this party, apparently he had invited Eddie to come back with him to his apartment. They had oral sex, and then Jeffrey gave him the drink that included crushed up sleeping pills and strangled him after he passed out. He used acid to dissolve the body parts and the bones, but decided to keep the skull to add to his collection. But this time he decided to try something different. He usually boiled it to get all the stuff off and clean it. This time he decided to dry it out in the oven. But this didn't work. It ended up exploding.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So tip number 214 from Jeffrey Dahmer. Don't dry your skulls in the oven. And what's weird about this one, this is one of the only, if not the only victim that he actually calls his sister about a year after he goes missing.
Yeah.
He calls her and says, hey, I know your brother's missing. Don't go looking for him. And she goes, why? And he says, because I killed him. And then like hangs up.
Oh my.
So at this point, he's in his new apartment and all, but Jeffrey's landlord started complaining about the awful smell coming from apartment 213.
Surprise.
And when confronted about it, Jeffrey would just say, oh, I'm sorry, I have some tropical fish that died.
What?
Or I think in another instance he said, oh, my fridge is not working properly. He had something to say every single time.
Of course he did.
Never, oh, it's the dead body in my bedroom that I'm cutting up at the moment.
Well, you know, there was no Febreze back then, so.
I wonder if Febreze made their stuff because of... No, that's awful.
That is awful.
Like Jeffrey Dahmer inspired them to make their product.
That's right.
So in July 1990, Jeffrey picked up a 15-year-old boy outside of the Phoenix bar where he offered him $200 to pose for nude photographs. This is like his MO. He loves luring people by offering money and asking them to pose for photographs, sometimes nude, sometimes just photographs. So the kid agreed, and he brought him back to his apartment where he actually refused all the drinks Jeffrey offered him. So smart.
Yes.
So he never got drugged. Well, Jeffrey still wanted his ultimate prize, so he decided to hit him with a rubber mallet and try to kill him rather than strangling him.
Oh my.
But that didn't work like he'd hoped, so they tussled for a minute, and he ended up strangling him, but he got loose. The kid said, look, I won't call the cops if you just let me go, and Jeffrey agreed and called a taxi for him. I'm not sure why, because he also let that other little boy go from episode 1.
Right.
I read somewhere it had to do with like the fact that he knew that he wasn't going to get drugged, and he can't kill someone that's already alive, quote unquote. He has to
Right.
kill someone that's like sleeping because he hates killing people. He just wants
The end result.
the meat. Yes.
Jeffrey Dahmer, we have the meats.
Oh my God. So again, he's a product killer, not a process killer. He just wants the end result. So when the boy went home, he didn't originally tell his foster mom because his foster mom did not know he was gay. And he didn't want to admit that to her. But she pressed, and he finally did, told her what happened. So she told the social worker. The social worker got the cops to come to Jeffrey's apartment. They knocked on the door. Jeffrey was not home, so they just left and never came back.
Wow. This could be the end of that story.
There could have been so many endings to this story. Jeffrey
I'm
is one of the
telling you.
luckiest people.
I know.
On September 2nd, 1990, Jeffrey decided to kill again. He met 25-year-old Ernest Miller outside of a local bookstore. He was a dancer, and Jeffrey said that he loved his physique. He had a dancer's body.
Ooh, yes.
So he brought him back to his apartment, but this time he cut his throat rather than the usual strangulation, and I could never find anywhere as to why.
Maybe he was real tired from his tussle with that boy that resulted in no death.
Oh, maybe.
Pulled some muscles, you know?
Yeah. But he realized he didn't like this method because he said it was, quote, too messy and caused too much pain. So after Ernest was murdered, he dismembered him in the bathtub, and this is where it gets weird. While he was dismembering him, he decapitated him, and he would talk to the head while he would dismember the rest of the body, and he would kiss it and talk to it and just have like a full conversation.
Okay. What the fuck, Jeffrey?
And not only that, but then he would hang up the entire skeleton in the shower, take pictures of it, and then he would continue to have a relationship with it when he would get home from work every day.
So he was like legit in love with this dancer person.
Yes.
Okay.
He would even keep ice in the bathtub to keep the body, quote unquote, fresh and not decomposing so fast. And he would even shower with the corpse on cold water to make sure that the ice didn't melt. How disgusting is that?
Every bit of that is disgusting. It's mind-boggling. It's just awful.
I keep picturing Jeffrey, you know, when you're in the shower and you're like soaping up and you're just like singing and you're just in your own world, but like he's with a cold shower and there's just like a dismembered body
and a
laying
bunch
over
of ice
in the bathtub with him.
Yeah. Nope. I don't even like a cold shower without the ice. So.
True love knows no bounds, I guess.
Guess so.
So gross. And this would be his first cannibalism victim. He kept the biceps, the heart, and part of his legs frozen and ate them slowly over time. And like I said, Jeffrey was an honest guy, so he would tell us eventually how he liked to eat. He wouldn't just, you know, what was his name? The Paris cannibal. Issei Sagawa. He would just, you know, want to take a bite out of it, just a chunk raw.
Yeah.
No. Jeffrey was like Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen with his victims. He said that he would sear them in a pan on the stove, and he would cook them with vegetables like onions, mushrooms, like an actual meal.
Okay.
Eat it. And then after he got done eating it, he would look at pictures of the corpse he just ate and masturbate.
Alrighty then.
And he said that he did this so that he could keep their memory alive, and he felt that eating them kept them with him forever. Like they were becoming a part of him.
Right. There's a lot of that in cannibalism. That's what people say. Like Issei Sagawa when he said that he wanted to absorb the energy. So.
Yep, there you go.
Well, I tell you, I've never had any meat that made me want to masturbate afterwards, so.
Not even the Kobe beef?
No, Kobe wasn't all that. Wasn't all that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, some fresh smoked Alaskan salmon, maybe. Not a dancer.
He had the dancer's body, so not only did he eat him, but he had a relationship with him in the shower every day. Oh, it's so weird. It's just, ugh.
What in the world, Jeffrey?
Then on September 24th, 1990, 22-year-old David Thomas, no, not the Wendy's guy, he would become his next victim. He picked him up at the Grand Avenue Mall, where he, again, offered money in exchange for nude pictures. He agreed, and so he brought him back to his apartment where he drugged him, and then realized, you know what? He's not my type. Wouldn't you think that ahead of time?
Yeah, I'd say.
But then again, I'm just now thinking, Jeffrey was a straight up alcoholic. I bet he had real bad beer goggles going. and picked this guy and then brought him back and did it and realized, oh, he's not as cute as I thought he was.
Or because he liked the bare chest, maybe he realized once he got him undressed that he wasn't bare-chested.
Or that. I don't know.
Or maybe a combination.
But he decided to go ahead and kill him anyway because he thought he would be angry with him if he didn't. Jeffrey explained that he only liked to kill, rape, eat, whatever you want to do with beautiful people, the most beautiful people. And so I guess maybe he felt bad, like he drugged him and then decided he wasn't one of the most beautiful people and he didn't want him to be mad at him.
So from the great beyond, he was going to be mad that, like, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't think he was beautiful? What the fuck, Jeffrey? I swear.
I don't know. That was his rationing in his mind to just go ahead and kill him anyway.
Poor Dave.
Poor Dave.
You were beautiful, Dave. You were beautiful. I don't care what Jeffrey thought. I don't even know what you look like.
On February 18th, 1991, Jeffrey murdered 17-year-old Curtis Straughter. He brought him back to his apartment. They had oral sex. He drugged him, handcuffed him, and then strangled him. He then dismembered him in his bathtub, took pictures of everything, kept the skull, and then this time also decided to keep his genitals and his hands as trophies.
Okay.
Then on April 7th, 1991, Jeffrey decided to make his first love zombie, which I really want to call rape zombie.
Yes.
I don't know if there's really a whole lot of love there except for maybe Jeffrey, and how much do you really love someone if you're going to murder them? Anywho, this is when he decides to get all mad scientist on us and thinks, not only do I want to murder them and eat them, but maybe I can control them and they can literally do what I want.
Yeah, then you don't have to kill them.
Right. So he met 19-year-old Errol Lindsay, who was actually a heterosexual. He still somehow got him to come back to his apartment. I don't know if he just said, like, hey, man, let's go party or something. But he came back to his apartment. He gave him the drug-laced cocktails, but he didn't strangle him. This time, he hand-drilled into his skull while he was passed out.
Hand-drilled?
Not even a power tool. We're talking a hand drill.
Jeffrey.
I don't know. I don't know if that's all he had or if that's how he wanted to do it. I don't know.
Be a little more prepared here, homie.
So he drilled into his skull, poured muriatic acid into it. I think it's close to battery acid. But he was somehow still alive. And when the drugs wore off, he woke up and said, I have a headache. What time is it?
Oh, no.
Like, how?
A lot of times during brain surgery, they keep you awake or they'll wake you back up to see, like, about your speech and stuff. So I guess he just hadn't hit that part.
Dude, the human body is just...
It's wild.
It's wild, yes. So since he was not dead yet and he really didn't seem to have a good control on him, he drugged him a little more, but he drugged him so much more that he passed out and he proceeded to just strangle him to death like usual. For this guy, the trophies he kept were his skin and his skull, of course. Loves a good skull. By late May of 1991, he kicked it into high gear and started killing almost weekly.
Holy cow.
So before it was like months at a time, and now he's doing it every week. On May 24th of 1991, he murdered 31-year-old Tony Hughes, who was actually a deaf mute. He saw him at Club 219 and realized that he was a deaf mute, so he actually got a piece of paper and wrote down that he was offering him $50 for some pictures. And he accepted.
Bless his heart.
Again, don't let strangers take your pictures. I don't care how much money is involved. It's never going to end well.
Nope.
So he came back to Jeffrey's apartment where he proceeded to drug and strangle him, and he left his dead body on his bedroom floor for 3 days before dismembering him.
What? Why?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if he had a relationship with it or if he just didn't feel like dealing with it. You know, he's working at the chocolate factory. He's just so busy.
Too busy.
He's also probably still got what's his name in the shower that he's already got a relationship with. He doesn't want to make the new guy jealous. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that's great.
I blame the natty light. Once he did dismember him, he took pictures and kept his skull too. Racking up that skull collection.
Oh my gracious. Today's episode is presented by BRÜUSH. BRÜUSH is an electric toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth. With powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles, the BRÜUSH redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you just leave the dentist, a fresh, whole mouth clean, every single day. Our listeners get 15% off their total purchase with code POD15. Follow the link in the show notes and enter the code POD15 to get your exclusive discount and upgrade your oral care routine.
Then on May 27th, 1991, and yes, that is literally days later, Jeffrey picked up 14-year-old Conrad Synthesiphone at the bus stop in front of Grand Avenue Mall. This is the weirdest true crime fact I've ever heard in my life. This kid was actually the younger brother of the Laotian boy that Jeffrey was sent to prison for. The Baileys and Coffee kid.
What in the world?
It was his younger brother.
Jeffrey, you can't take two from a family. That's not cool.
Well, he didn't know this at the time. I don't know if it was just such a small town or what.
Research your victims.
Somehow, he didn't even know this, but he picked him up, brought him back to his apartment, proceeded to drug and rape him, and then tried to create another human sex slave. He again drilled a hole into his head and injected acid into the frontal lobe, but he realized, I'm out of beer. I'm just going to leave this kid where he is, and I'm going to go out and get some beer. I'm going to come right back.
Good God.
While he was gone, wouldn't you know it, he woke up and found his way outside. A woman spotted this poor kid wandering around the streets, disoriented in his underwear, so she called 911.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jeffrey comes back from the store with his beer, and he's greeted by police. Jeffrey says, oh, this is my 19-year-old boyfriend. We were just in the middle of some kinky lovemaking, and he must have just wandered out of the apartment. He's probably just had a little too much to drink.
Oh, my gracious.
And what's even worse is they buy it.
Oh.
This is a 14-year-old kid, also with a hole in his head, so I'm not understanding
like,
why
is no one noticing
no
the
one
hole?
sees that. Yeah, but apparently no one did. The police buy it. Again, the gay scene back then was not as accepting as it is now, so I don't know if the police were homophobic and they just wanted to, like, not
get rid
mess
of that.
with anything. Meanwhile, Tony Hughes, his decomposing body was still just chilling in Jeffrey Dahmer's bedroom. So had the cops just taken 5 seconds out of their day to take a look inside of his apartment, he would have been caught right there. But no.
Yeah. Or, like, maybe just take that kid. Be like, I think he's had too much to drink. No one can consent here. Clearly, if he's this drunk, he's wandering the street in his underwear. We're going to take him home.
Correct. But no. So the cops leave. So Jeffrey pours more acid into his head, but he poured a little too much and ended up killing him. Jeffrey calls out of work the next day, says he's sick, but really he said he called out so he could spend more time with the boy's body before dismembering him, and then also needed to take care of Tony Hughes' remains as well. So he dismembered the boy's body and put his head in the freezer. On June 30th of 1991, Jeffrey decided to attend the Gay Pride Parade in Chicago.
Yes, pride, Jeffrey, yes.
That's the only thing you get a yes from us.
I was going to go to Pride last year for the first time, and COVID.
I know. Ruins everything. Well, he decided to go, and he met 20-year-old Matt Turner. He was an aspiring model, so obviously a good body, and Jeffrey liked that, so he offered him cash to take some pictures, which he happily agreed. But he met the same fate as all the others. He brought him back to his Milwaukee apartment, drugs him and strangles him, and when he dismembers him, he puts his head and internal organs in the freezer, and this time he gets a blue barrel of acid to dissolve the rest of his body in. And now he's just, knocking bodies out left and right. He's feeling real confident. He decides to ramp things up yet again. And this time, Jeffrey goes from killing almost weekly to almost daily. His next 4 victims happened over a period of just 10 days. 4 bodies, 10 days. That's insane.
He got greedy. Got real greedy.
Yes, he did. So on the holiday weekend of July 4th of 1991, Jeffrey decided to go hang out in Chicago again, and he would choose his next victim, 23-year-old Jeremiah Weinberger, who he met at a gay bar, and said, hey, you want to come back to my apartment and spend the weekend with me? Because where else would they go?
Right, yeah.
And he said, sure. So he got him a Greyhound bus ticket and brought him back to his apartment in Milwaukee. They had sex, apparently had a grand old time. And when Jeremiah decided he had enough fun and wanted the weekend to end and go back home, Jeffrey didn't like that.
Surprise.
So he decided to drug him, and this time he injected boiling water into his brain instead of acid. Jeffrey said he did live a little longer this time than the others with the acid, but ultimately he did die with his eyes still open, which, it just gives me the creeps.
Oh yeah, no, not here for that.
He then decapitated him and disposed of his torso in the blue barrel of acid. He's got a thing for heads. He says he's a torso guy, but he sounds like a head guy.
Yeah, You'd think someone that keeps a bunch of skulls, you'd be like focused on like head shape or hair or something,
Right.
not a torso.
Or like cheekbones and
Yeah.
Then on July 12th, 1991, Jeffrey met and murdered a 24-year-old bodybuilder named Oliver Lacey by offering him money for photos, as usual. This time, Jeffrey drugged him and strangled him with a leather strap, then proceeded to decapitate him like the others, put his head in the fridge, put his heart in the freezer to eat later, but decided that bicep looked just too good, so he sliced off his right bicep and ate it right away. He also kept his full skeleton for his altar. Jeffrey's final victim, yes, we've made it this far. Victim number 17 was 25-year-old Joseph Bradhoff, who he met while riding the bus. He was murdered on July 19th, 1991, but this time Jeffrey left his corpse on his bed for 2 days before decapitating him and putting his head in the fridge. Which again, I'm not sure why. I don't know if he had a relationship with it. Who knows?
Getting lazy, getting tired. I mean, you're killing people almost every day at this point.
Right?
And I've never killed anybody, but I've walked up my stairs, and that's exhausting, so... like, I can't even imagine the effort and tiredness from killing someone.
That's hilarious. You can't walk up your stairs. I'm keeping snacks in my drawer so I don't have to walk to the kitchen, which is like 10 steps away. Meanwhile, Jeffrey's out here murdering every day.
Yes.
And we're like, why didn't he dispose of the body?
Yeah.
And like the others, he put the torso in the blue barrel of acid. Literally that same day, Jeffrey was fired from the Ambrosia chocolate factory because, yes, he was still working there. They fired him for taking too many days off.
I'm sure.
So Jeffrey's career as a chocolate maker had come to an end, but so would his days as the murdering cannibal.
Thank goodness.
Because on July 22nd, 1991, 32-year-old Tracy Edwards would be the last surviving victim. Jeffrey met Tracy and a group of his friends at the Grand Avenue Mall, and Jeffrey invited all of them over to have a party at his place and also offered money to take some pictures. Sounds like a great party.
It sounds like Jeffrey was planning to do like a mass murder, is what that sounds like.
Well, I'm not sure if he was. I think Tracy may have made that up.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. But Tracy said they all agreed, and Tracy went, but said that none of his other friends showed up. He says Jeffrey gave them all a different address than him.
Oh.
Like he purposely brought him alone. No one knows if that's true or not because Tracy's story does change a lot. A lot of people think, again, gay was not as accepting back then as it is now.
Right.
And I don't know how many people knew he was gay. So I don't know if he was doing that to try to cover it up, like he accidentally went to this man's house knowing good and well what he was going for.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, he shows up at Jeffrey's apartment alone. In one story, he said that he just woke up to being handcuffed, but tried to remain calm. And he said Jeffrey actually put him on the couch and they watched a movie together, and said that the whole time they were watching the movie, he was holding a knife and chanting something under his breath. And then Tracy said out of nowhere, he just turns to him and says, "I want to eat your heart," and just attacks him.
Buzzkill.
But what's interesting is Jeffrey disagrees with that whole story. And Jeffrey's been honest about literally everything else, about all the horrible things he's done. So it's like, is that really how it happened?
But what does Jeffrey say happened?
He's more of the usual, gave him some drinks, they had a good time, he passes out, he goes to strangle him, but he wakes up.
Okay.
Before he can strangle him, and tried to get him with the knife. In another story, he says that he was handcuffed while he was looking at Jeffrey's fish tank, that he was just kind of like not paying attention, and Jeffrey just handcuffs him. So he got scared and said Jeffrey drew a knife at that point. And then as a way of trying to get out of it and trying to keep the person calm, he's like, "Look, I'm not going to turn you in. You don't have to hurt me. Let's just watch a movie and hang out."
Yeah.
And then they watch the movie at that point. But either way, he's with Jeffrey. He gets drugged. There's handcuffs involved. Somehow Jeffrey has a knife and tries to come after him, but he manages to escape. He said that he was able to somehow like punch Jeffrey and run out the front door.
Oh my gracious.
So he runs out in the middle of the street, half naked in handcuffs, and he runs up to two police officers and says, "Look, there's a crazy man in that apartment. can you please let me out of these handcuffs so I can get away? And of course, the police officers are like, yeah, but let's go to the apartment and get this guy, this crazy guy.
You say, of course, but just a few victims back, these idiots sent this kid with a hole in his head back up to Jeffrey's apartment. So, surprisingly,
That's
the
true.
cops said, let's go check out this apartment.
Okay, you got me there. So yes, they said, hey, let's go confront this crazy man that you're talking about. And again, being gay was not totally cool. He was embarrassed. He was ashamed. He said, no, don't worry about him. Just get me out of these handcuffs and let me go.
Yeah.
And the police were like, no, we need to go check out this crazy man you're talking about. So they go to Jeffrey's apartment and Jeffrey lets them in. So they're just kind of having a look around, and Jeffrey tries to play it off like he did the other guy. Like, oh, this is my boyfriend. He's had too much to drink. We were just kind of having some naughty time, and things went a little too far. And they're like, look, what you do is your business. Let's just get him out of these handcuffs. And Jeffrey's like, oh, well, the keys are in the bedroom, but I haven't seen them in forever. I don't even know for sure where they're at in the bedroom. So the police are like, look, we will let both of you be. Just let's get these handcuffs off of him. So they start going to the bedroom to get the keys. Jeffrey jumps in front of them and says, no, I think you guys need to leave. And the police were like, back away from the bedroom. So one of the officers goes into the bedroom. He's just kind of looking around, and he notices one of Jeffrey's chest of drawers kind of halfway open and just kind of peeks inside. And there are all the pictures of all his victims. All these naked, dismembered people.
I would have puked.
Not only that, but he notices that these pictures were taken clearly in that apartment. So they handcuffed him and arrested him. While they had him, decided to take a peek a little further and open up the fridge and saw a head in there. And they were like, oh man, this is way, way worse than we were ever expecting. So when the detectives show up, they find so many things. And I'm going to give them to you in detail because that's who I am as a person.
Yes, I'm here for it.
His fridge was pretty much empty except for ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, stuff like that. Arm & Hammer baking soda box to, keep things fresh.
Yeah.
And literally that was it except for body parts. They found the severed head right away. There was also a collection of 7 skulls, 3 additional severed heads in the freezer, a bag of flesh and internal organs, a random torso just chilling by itself somewhere. And then he had a whole separate freezer with 2 hearts, a slab of muscle tissue, 2 full skeletons, a scalp, which I thought was interesting.
It is.
And the 57-gallon blue barrel with 3 different torsos just boiling in acid.
But I just had a thought. If this were
Yeah.
you and they were raiding your home and you were a serial killer, you'd have everything labeled.
I absolutely would.
Like when you were talking about the bag of internal organs, I immediately pictured you labeling internal organs.
The name of my victim, the age.
Yes.
Yep, you got it. But there turned out to be 74 Polaroid pictures of dismembered bodies.
My gracious, man. Why so many?
One of the detectives was interviewed. He said, quote, one showed a man's head with the flesh still intact, just laying in a sink. Another displayed a victim cut open from the neck to the groin and opened like a deer gutted after the kill. The cuts were so clean you could see the pelvic bone clearly. End quote.
Whoa.
Which reminded me of your your freezer and your deer fiasco
Yes.
that you talked about at the beginning of the episode.
Flashbacks.
In the back of his closet, there were a collection of 2 sets of hands and 2 penises. And what's real weird, and I did not do this detail, but I am detailed, so you're going to hear it too. One of the penises was from a black man, but he had went and bought foundation makeup and painted it white.
Why even do that?
I guess he preferred a white penis, but it was from a black man, so he put foundation on it, makeup.
Could have also been, though, because a lot of these people were of different ethnicities or races. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, they didn't make foundation for black people that matches. That's only recently become a thing.
True.
So
maybe he did it just because it was starting to decay and look real gross. I don't know.
that could be
That's a good
too.
point.
Yeah.
And then they said there was also a lot of chemicals such as ethyl alcohol, formaldehyde acid, etc. The police said it was like a museum. So Jeffrey was taken back to the police station where he wrote a 160-page confession, and this included all the details.
Wow.
And you know how we were talking about the heads earlier? Like, man, he really likes heads.
Yeah.
Well, he said that he actually kept the heads and the penises because he was trying to satisfy himself with the killings he had already done. to keep himself from killing more, but said it just didn't work. And so he just kept going out and killing more.
Well, I mean, he had that long time in which he didn't kill.
That's true.
And since he doesn't really enjoy killing, he enjoys the after part. Maybe.
Yeah. But he was terrified to go to jail because he was gay. He also knew that once the details were out of all these horrific crimes that he did, he would not be well liked in jail.
Yeah.
The trial began in January of 1992 and was huge. It was O.J. Simpson huge. It may have been bigger than O.J. I don't know, but it was big.
Yeah.
And it had the biggest security of any other United States case before. It was on
Wow.
every newspaper. It was on every TV news show. There was constant coverage of this case. So on January 13th, 1992, Jeffrey ignored his lawyer's advice and entered a plea of guilty but insane. This, of course, brings in a lot of psychiatrists and
Right.
psychologists to determine, is he really sane or not? And they had a lot of conflicting, like, was he insane? Was he not? Because he's admitting guilt. He's admitting what he did. He obviously was diagnosed with primary necrophilia. That was no question. But was he of clear mind when he was committing these crimes? Did some weird part of his brain just take over to where he didn't even realize what he was doing?
Right.
But they determined that he was not insane. He knew what he was doing. He purposely went out and sought these people out, brought them back to his home. He did the same thing over and over. He kept the bodies. It was very clear that he was guilty and not insane. So on February 15th, 1992, a jury agreed after just 5 hours of deliberation, and they found him guilty, sent him to life imprisonment rather than a mental hospital. Death penalty was not a legal option at this point. Wisconsin did not have the death penalty.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So he was transferred to spend the rest of his days at Columbia Correctional Institute in Portage, Wisconsin. At first, they kept him separate from all the other inmates because of who he was.
Right, yeah.
But eventually, over time, they decided to put him with the rest of them. And this was not a good idea because on July 3rd of 1994, another inmate tried to murder him with a sharpened toothbrush while he was coming out of a church service.
Oh my goodness.
Jeffrey became a born-again Christian while he was in prison.
Okay.
So rather than just having him mingle with the rest, they decided to put him on work detail to have him in specific areas.
Right. Okay.
But on the early morning of November 28th, 1994, around 8 a.m., Jeffrey and two other inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver, were doing janitorial work that morning in the gym bathroom. The guards stepped away for, he said, no more than 20 minutes. And when he came back, Jeffrey and Jesse were barely alive on the floor and immediately transferred to a hospital. Christopher Scarver apparently beat them both to death.
Why'd you do the other guy? I mean, I get Jeffrey, but...
When questioned, Christopher said, quote, "God told me to do it."
Oh my...
I don't know. When the guard stepped away, he saw an opportunity and he took it.
I knew that Jeffrey was killed by an inmate, but I didn't realize that there was another inmate that was also attacked.
Yes. And they both ended up dying. When the guard came back, they were both just barely alive. So they were transferred to the hospital. Jeffrey died just an hour after being transferred, and Jesse Anderson, the other inmate, died about 2 days later from his injuries.
Oh no.
So Jeffrey died from fatal blows to the head with a 20-inch metal bar. Did you ever hear the rumor that he died from having a broom handle shoved up his ass?
I think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I had heard that too. So Jesse died from some sort of broom or mop handle being beaten to death with it. No one got
okay.
anything shoved up their ass. I don't know if it's because Jeffrey was gay and people are just sick and twisted and they made up that rumor, but he was
Probably.
beaten to death with a metal bar to the head. So yes, Jeffrey passed away in prison. Christopher Scarver did receive 2 additional life sentences for those murders. In Jeffrey's will, he requested that there be no funeral, just that he wanted to be cremated. So his parents, I believe, had a private service just for the 2 of them, but they are divorced, and so they split his ashes between them. And I'm going to end this with a quote that Jeffrey put in a letter to the judge during his sentencing. The letter said, "Your Honor, it is now over. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did, but not for the reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I know how much harm I have caused. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins. I ask for no consideration.
Wow.
So now that I have left it on a serious note, I had to put in some Jeffrey Dahmer jokes.
Okay.
Did you hear what they found in Jeffrey's shower?
What?
Head and shoulders. Did you hear what they found in his freezer?
What?
Ben and Jerry.
Oh my God.
Also, did you know that they let visitors come see Jeffrey when he was in prison before he died?
No?
They did, but it would cost you an arm and a leg.
Oh my
Oops. That is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, and you're welcome. Love our podcast? Then hit that subscribe button and leave us a review.
We're also on Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/truecrimebuzz and join today for access to all our exclusive content, including bonus episodes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TC Buzz Podcast.
And check out our website at www.truecrimebuzz.com.
Until next time, cheers!